For more on China's air pollution problems and the efforts to tackle it, I spoke with Wang Tao. He's a resident scholar at the Energy and Climate Program. That's part of the Carnegie-Tsinghua Center for Global Policy. I asked him about the criticism that China's long-term plan to cut coal use isn't enough.
I disagree with that idea. This kind of announcement means we are not going to do things in the short term, or another things will not going to happen in the short term. In fact, to meet that target we set in 2030, we have to start very quickly to make the turn, to reduce the carbon emission growth, to improve the share of the non-fossil fuel in China's primary energy consumption. There's a lot of things we have to do, and China has to do, especially to address the coal consumption in the short term, because that is a major contribution to both the air pollution as well as the climate change. But I think there's also something we missed, because if you look at the whole promise by Chinese and the American government, the transportation and also the consumption of oil is a little bit go undernoticed, because if you look at the trend, transportation sector is increasing so fast, and that means the demand of oil is bound to increase, whereas China is still in a huge need for pursuing the oil and gas supply over the world. And we have to address where is the consumption to be supplied, and how that kind of oil is going to be used in a more environmental friendly way.
Let me follow up on two of the points you brought up. One is coal. Coal, as we all know, has been one of the biggest sort of contributors towards air pollution in China, which we talk about quite often. But now if you use less coal, what other industries would take up the shortfall in energy production?
Well, coal will be reused less, and then we have to use more of the cleaner energies. For example, gas as a cleaner fossil fuels to generating power, and also to replace some of the oil in the transportation sector, but also more of the renewables, wind and solar. But also, this, as we mentioned, oil is still somehow a little bit undernoticed. We haven't seen much alternative to oil, but China's consumption for oil is bound to increase, and we are now actually seeing a trend in all over the world. The sweet and light oil is running out. It's less and less accessible. What instead we're having is more heavier and dirtier oil from Venezuela, from Canada. Those oils are dirtier and even causing more carbon footprint, causing more carbon emissions if we use. And we have to address that. Otherwise, you will find another sectors unexpected increasing and cause damage to China's promise to reducing the coal consumption. The carbon emissions.
Fair enough, but more cars, more demand, that's not going to change. I mean, China is on that path. What's the solution? I mean, either less people drive or they all drive electric cars. I mean, that's a natural question someone's going to ask.
Definitely. You will say that, first of all, yes, it's bound to increase the car ownership, but we can increase the car ownership in a smarter way. So there are not many people really need that car, or they may not need that car that many that quick. So we can take measures, for example, changing our urban planning and take the measures to control the car use in the city. So some of the people will choose to have a car later. And that means also you will be able to have a car more efficient or even using alternative energy. So secondly, also, you will be able to encourage people to use less car. You can have a car, but you don't really have to drive it every day. You drive it when you really need it. You don't really have to drive it to the city center to commute and cause huge congestion in the city center.
Does China's 5-year plan ultimately drive what happens globally in terms of fighting climate change, or does what the global agenda ultimately influence what China's 5-year plan will be specifically towards climate change?
This is a very good question, and I think the interaction between these two are both ways. First of all, you would have Chinese government's own targets. The 5-year plan will have global implication because of now China's energy consumption is so huge. The implication of China's demand on energy means a lot to our fight to climate change. But on the other hand, China's targets will also respond to the requirement of the climate change. For example, the peak of China's carbon emissions in 2030 will have to be reflected in the next 5-year plan and also the 5-year plan after that. So there is a reflection on both ways, and they'll have to make sure that they align to each other.